What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the World According to Briggs. Today we're going to look at the Golden State, California. California these days has become a comeback for Middle America's argument on why liberals are bad. California is one of the richest states in the nation, not just economically speaking either. It's rich in natural beauty too. The weather, the beaches, the mountains, and all that cosmetic surgery makes California beautiful. California is a highly desirable place to live, and that's a fact, and it shows by the cost of living and housing prices. San Francisco now outranks Manhattan as the most expensive real estate market in the US. I read one thing on a real estate site that said any other city in America, if you make $500,000 a year, you have your choice of almost any house in almost any neighborhood. That's not the case in Manhattan or San Francisco. Today's list is not about San Francisco. It's about places in California that still might be considered a cheap place to live, at least for California standards. Now, quick heads up, if I went just by the numbers, all those places would be in the middle of Death Valley, because it is dirt cheap to live out there. You just have to get used to dust, dirt, and sweating a lot. And that wouldn't make for a very exciting list. It would make for a very depressing list, actually. So I'll spread it out with places that I found that are nice and inexpensive compared to the rest of California. Now, they're not going to be perfect. If it's a really cheap town in California, there's a reason for it. It's not the greatest town, but some of these are okay. Now, I'm sure there's a bunch more that we missed, and we would love to hear about it in the comment section below, so feel free to tell us about them. All right, in no particular order, let's find out where you can live in California without selling a kidney. Number 10, Twentynine Palms, California. Twentynine Palms was named after the palm trees found there in 1852 by Colonel Henry Washington. He decided to do a little surveying in the area and found some trees, a whole lot of dirt and rocks. The town of almost 26,000 residents sits just outside of Joshua Tree National Park. They also have the Marine Corps Air Group Combat Center at Twentynine Palms, or just Twentynine Palms. I've trained there with the Marines. I was in the Army. The Marines, we trained together sometimes. I swore I'd never go back there, and so far I'm holding up that promise to myself. The place is horrible to train. The cost of living in Twentynine Palms is 33% lower than California's average. That's pretty good. That's a low number. And it's 7% lower than the national average. Twentynine Palms housing is 25% lower than the national average. You can get a house here for as low as $150,000. You probably won't want that house, but it's there for you. If you want to get a better house, probably the nicer ones start off around $250 and go all the way up to $350 maybe. Most of them don't have lawns because this place is desert and dry, but you might be lucky if you have a bush or two. Number 9, Blythe, California. Blythe, California is what you get when you combine desert and retirees on a fixed income. The good news is it's cheap to live here. The city was incorporated on July 21st, 1916. The population was 20,000 at the 2010 census, and they think it's dropped a little bit. They're not really sure how much. We'll find out in a year or so when this census is over. Blythe is in the Colorado Desert, which is part of the Sonora Desert. Yes, it is in California, and it's called the Colorado Desert. The Colorado River flows just east of town, so it sort of makes sense. Blythe's housing is 30% lower than the national average, and the cost of living is 34% lower than California's average. And the cost of living is 8% lower than the national average. In Blythe, you can get a home you don't want for under $150,000 and get one you probably do want for $225,000. They have a bunch of mobile homes here, and what's weird is they have a bunch of homes that aren't mobile homes, but they look like they are. It's like they design them that way. It's weird. Number 8, Chowchilla, California. Chowchilla is in between Merced and Fresno. Merced is okay, Fresno sucks. Chowchilla also has the Valley State Prison, real close, and I think people would rather mention that they live near a prison than near Fresno. Chowchilla isn't a terrible place. It gets hot and it has some crime. It's not as bad as the cost of living might make you think. Chowchilla's crime rate is actually 36% lower than California's average. The cost of living in Chowchilla is 30% lower than California's average and 2% lower than the national average. The real estate prices are about 63% lower here than the California average. Houses you don't want here are around $160,000, and the ones you do want are somewhere close to $300,000. A little bit over probably. But in general, this is a really good place to live if you just get past that heat. Number 7, Gustine, California. Gustine is a little town between San Jose and Merced if you're looking at a map. Gustine has about 6,000 residents, and it's the type of place where you could drive up and down the Interstate 5 for years and not realize that this town's just a few miles off the interstate. I watched a video about how during the COVID-19 lockdown, like March and April, the police started delivering food and groceries for people because the town was so small they didn't have anything like Grubhub. That's great. They were just dropping people's stuff off, especially the elderly, so they wouldn't have to leave the house during the lockdown. It's a nice small town. And I'm kind of shocked that it's so cheap to live here. It is kind of out of the way, so that plays into it, but still. The cost of living in Gustine is 31% lower than California's average and 3% lower than the national average. The housing in Gustine is 15% lower than the national average. Now, they have a bunch of trailers here, and they go for next to nothing, like $18,000 to $20,000 for one. They also have a whole lot of vacant lots that are for sale for under $100,000, but the nicer homes start off at about $290,000. $277,000, I saw a couple like that, but they go all the way up to $425,000 for a really nice house here. Number 6, Firebaugh, California. Firebaugh got its name from a guy who ran a ferry that crossed the San Joaquin River back in the day. The thing is, that's not even how you spell his name. So many people misspelled his name, it kind of stuck. It's actually F-I-E-R-B-A-U-G-H, not F-I-R-E-B-A-U-G-H. So they mixed up 2 letters and it kind of stuck. This is a farming community for the most part. If you need any proof of that and the surrounding farmland didn't convince you, every year they have a Cantaloupe Roundup Festival. Yeah, Cantaloupe Roundup Festival. The cost of living in Firebaugh is 35% lower than California's average and 8% lower than the national average. Firebaugh's housing is actually 32% lower than the national average. Most all of the houses go for in between $200,000 and $250,000. Now they have a few that are higher, but all the ones that are for sale right now are right around that area, $200,000 to $250,000. Number 5, El Centro, California. Down near the Mexico border east of San Diego, you have El Centro. If you like warm weather, El Centro has plenty of it for you. This is a farming city. It was a farming town, but now the metro area has over 160,000 residents, so it's a farming city. This city is right in the middle of miles and miles of farmland and desert. They actually have a great ATV area called Imperial Dunes, but actually I guess the real name is Algodones Dunes. But I've always called it Imperial Dunes. I don't know. That's what everyone I knew called it. Anyway, this place draws thousands of visitors every single year, mainly for off-road driving of anything. I've seen everything out there. I've actually also seen a few photo shoots with models and stuff like that. It's been pretty cool. It's a neat landscape. The cost of living in El Centro is 30% lower than California's average and 2% lower than the national average. The housing is 14% lower than the national average, and it's a great place to live for the most part. They do have some crime, but not terrible. I mean, if you watch the news, you think anything near the Mexico border is just going to be some kind of, war zone. No, it's not. Just like El Paso. They have some crime, but it's not crazy like you'd think it should be if you watch the news. You can get homes here in the 200,000 area, but those aren't really the ones you want. You want to be looking $250,000 to $350,000, and they go all the way up, but that's a nice spot. $250,000 to $350,000 will get you a good home in El Centro. Number 4. Atwater, California. The railroad reached Atwater in the 1870s and the town grew from there. The first post office opened up in 1880 and Atwater was incorporated in 1922. They named the town after Marshall D. Atwater, a local wheat farmer whose land they used to actually put the railroad station in. Kind of a nice thing. You give up a little land, they name the town after you. This is a nice town. It's the other side of Merced from Fresno, so that's good, but it's closer to Modesto. That's a tough one. I'm not sure which one sucks worse, Fresno or Modesto. I'm gonna have to think about that one. Anyway, the cost of living in Atwater is 30% lower than California's average and 2% lower than the national average. The housing is 11% lower than the national average, so this is a good place to live. They do have some crime. It's 59% higher than the national average, but that's nothing. I mean, take a look at Detroit. I think they're like 340% higher than the national average, so 59% is not bad. You can get a house here that's in decent, good shape, that's been well maintained for under $250,000. $220,000 to $250,000. That'll get you a nice small house. You get up towards the 300 area and it starts getting a lot better. But yeah, you're looking between $250,000 and $350,000. That's a nice price for a town like this. Number 3, Rosamond, California. Rosamond is about an hour outside of Los Angeles, just north of Lancaster. The hour thing is technically correct, but unless you live on the outskirts of LA, you should know it takes about an hour to get out of LA most days. The first local industries were mining and cattle. During the 1890s, gold was discovered, and like everywhere else, when people start pulling money out of the ground, more people show up, and a community was born. The gold dried up years later, but people stayed because of nearby Murdoch Field, which later was renamed to Edwards Air Force Base. If you don't mind desert life, this might be worth a look. The cost of living in Rosamond is 24% lower than California's average, and it's about even with the national average. The housing is 11% lower than the national average, which is good. In Rosamond, there's plenty of empty lots for around 10,000. I mean, they have a whole bunch of them. You could buy a plot of land and put whatever you want on them. They have some nice mobile home parks. They got some rundown ones too, but they have some nice ones where you can get a place for, around 50,000 or under 50,000. A house here starts around 220,000 and they go all the way up. I actually saw one for 700,000. It was nice, but in my opinion, it was far too expensive for Rosamond. Number 2, Alturas, California. Do you want to get away? Do you hate everyone you know? Are you tired of having friends and family wanting to visit? If so, you should probably move to this little town in the northeastern corner of California. This is one of those towns that probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the train back in the day. I'm not even sure if the train goes through here anymore, but it used to. This is a beautiful little town that would probably be far more expensive if it wasn't so remote. And this place it's kind of away from everything. The cost of living in Alturas is 34% lower than California's average, and it's about 8% lower than the national average. Alturas housing is actually 41% lower than the national average. Now, that's one thing if it's lower than California's, but it's lower than the national average by 41%. That's pretty good. You could buy a livable home for under $100,000. It might need a little work, but they look nice. A really nice house starts at about $220,000, and they have nice lots of land for under $10,000. I did watch one guy's video, and he said if you have AT&T cell service, plan on changing to Verizon if you move here because the cell service for AT&T there sucked. That's just what he said. I don't know that for sure. And number 1, Susanville, California. About 2 hours south of Alturas, near Eagle Lake, you have Susanville. Like Alturas, if you want to cut down on unannounced visitors, move here. Things move a little slow in Susanville. Here's a picture of downtown in 1975, and here it is again in 2005. I'm totally kidding, but anyway, the cost of living in Susanville is 30% lower than the California average and about 2% lower than the national average. Housing here is 15% lower than the national average. This is a great place to live. It's really nice. They have houses for sale on Eagle Lake or just a short walk off the lake from $50,000 to $150,000. A nice house in town will run you about $150,000 to $220,000. This is a nice place to live. It's only about an hour and a half from Reno, Nevada, so I mean, it's a quiet town. You got some entertainment in Reno just an hour and a half away. Not bad. Alright, so that's today's list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Don't forget to give the video a big thumbs up if you liked it. Tell me what you thought. Any of them I missed, I'd love to hear about them. If you haven't subscribed, I'm really trying to gain subscribers right now. Please feel free to subscribe. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.